Hello, friends, and happy Friday. Welcome to the Friday stream. If you're new here, my name is Lisa. I will be your hostess. Today, we will be reading about an issue happening to Indian women in India, where they are getting married and their husbands are abandoning them. I saw this article, it came out about a month ago, and I thought it was really interesting. I didn't read it, I just skimmed it. So we're going to be learning and reading together. If you are new to the Friday stream, we read the article together, and then you can stop at any time, stop me and comment, and I will read your comments, or I will stop and comment. And then at the end, we have just a chat about whatever is on our minds. So we'll get started with the article. Welcome everybody who is here. Hope you're staying cool wherever you are. It's quite hot here. I went for a run this morning, and then I was working on a little vlog. I've been enjoying making those lately. That's been quite fun. And yeah, hello Moon Moon. Welcome. Hi Irene. Does anyone out there familiar with Indian culture or know much about it? I really am not that familiar with it. I've known a few Indian people in my life, but I don't really know much about like what's going on in India. I know the situation there can be quite bleak for women. Hi, Julie. Julie says, I had the YouTube notification on, but it didn't alert me. I don't know, YouTube doesn't really love me. So anyways, Moon Moon says, I'm not very familiar, though I have had interesting conversations with Indian friends. So I think we'll just get into the article. Hello, Yan Yan. Okay, so the article is called They Married for a Life Abroad, but They Never Saw Their Husbands Again. So kind of an ominous title right off the bat. Thousands of Indian women have been abandoned by men working overseas, leaving them trapped in their in-laws' homes and often defrauded of dowry money. A couple in the wedding attire in the Indian state of Punjab in March. Like many other women in the state of Punjab, long a hub of emigration from India, Sharndeep Kaur has aspired to marry an Indian working abroad and follow him to a more prosperous life overseas. On January 13th, 2014, she thought her dream had come true. That day, in a Sikh temple, she married Harjinder Singh, who had just returned from Italy and moved in with his family. After a few days, though, her in-laws began demanding about $10,000 so her husband could resettle in Canada. When she failed to secure the money, they starved and beat her, according to a police complaint that did not result in any charges. So that, right off the bat, very bleak. Where did they think she was going to get $10,000 from? Is this first of all, is this a marriage for love, or is this an arranged marriage or a property exchange, or what? I'm curious, like, how common marriages for love versus arranged marriages and property exchanges are there? Because I guess the dowry system is alive and well there. Yeah, definitely. Wow. And the fact that there's no recourse in the legal system, the police didn't do anything to help her. Totally legal. The dowry system seems pretty ripe for abuse. Yeah, I would think so. 8 weeks after the wedding, her husband went back to his dairy job in Italy. Ms. Carr never saw him again. So that is 9 years ago. They got married. He stuck around for 8 weeks, which is not long at all. Then he moved to Italy, and she's stuck there in India. Still married. The days turned into weeks and then months, she said recently at her home in the village of Fata Nangal. And my eyes kept searching for him. Whoa. Irene's spicy take is that all het marriages are an exchange of property. The woman is the property. I would tend to agree with you on that. Is that spicy? Is that a spicy take? I think in virtually the whole world, it's like that. And even in the West, where marriages are for love, there's definitely like an exchange of work, usually, right? Like the woman, she's gaining some security by being attached to a man and perhaps some social status, but she does it in exchange for then taking on the vast majority of housework that if he were single, he would have been doing it himself or not doing it. So Moon says some Indians I've met who are millennial age still think arranged marriages can work well and cite their parents as an example. Incidentally, my primary doctor for the last like 20 years, except I just started seeing somebody new, but my previous primary doctor is Indian from India, and her husband is also Indian, and they had an arranged marriage, and they're both doctors in the same practice together, family medicine. And I guess they had a successful marriage. Like I know her pretty well, and I don't know. It's not like I know anything really about their personal lives. She was my doctor. But I think they had 2 daughters and they both grew up. One grew up to be a vet and one grew up to be a doctor also. So is that a measure of success? They stayed together. You know, they were both successful financially as doctors. Does happiness factor in? I don't know. My doctor always seemed pretty happy. Obviously, just like a total anecdotal example there. Anani the Femme says, I agree. No matter how progressive a culture is, marriage is an exchange. No matter how minimal the trad gender roles are in the relationship, definitely an exchange. Yeah. Whether it's an exchange of work or, I heard something once that when people get divorced, they feel stupider afterwards because in a marriage, one partner takes on the responsibility for like governing some of the information between those two people, if that makes sense. I'm not explaining this well. Like you outsource some of your knowledge to the other person. So they have a knowledge of a certain set of topics and you can kind of benefit from that knowledge as long as you're married. And then as soon as you get divorced, you like don't have that knowledge anymore, if that makes sense. So people end up feeling like they've lost like brain power, but really it's because they've lost access to another person's brain. And that's also part of the exchange. Maybe not exactly how we're talking about it, but yeah, you get some things and you give some things up. I think the important thing for women is you're not giving up more than you're getting, but that definitely does tend to be the dynamic. Moon says, just my opinion, but I feel their expectations, meaning Indians' expectations of marriage, are lower than Western marriage is more of a partnership than a romance. And that even in the West, for a long time, that was seen as more of the goal rather than love, to just be like, can we work this thing together in the long term? We don't have to be like romantically in love with each other or whatever. More of a partnership to produce children and, to move together. Ms. Carr is far from alone in her misery. Tens of thousands of Indian women have been abandoned by husbands working abroad, according to government officials and activists, trapping many of them in their in-laws' homes in accordance with local social customs, even for decades. So they get married, the man moves to a foreign country and leaves the wife at his in-laws' home. What was the point of getting married in the first place? They're obviously not producing children, and she's just become kind of like an indentured servant or something in her in-laws' home. I don't really see what the point of that is. When you think of it, Western arranged marriages actually acknowledge the transactional nature no matter what, even if both parties love each other. Julie says, as a 3 times divorcee, I have reconciled myself to never again getting a good deal on a new or used car. So that's kind of what I was talking about in outsourcing some of that information or tasks or whatever, the mental tasks, that kind of knowledge and stuff to your partner. 15th, Jessica says, I remember in articles about China's marriage problem, boy moms complained about not having a daughter-in-law to help. Maybe that's it. I guess help around the house or something. His parents wanted a slave and a free plane ticket for their son. Yeah, that's wild. Wow. I feel like this is something where the government could step in and help these women. Could they? There's like no will to. Okay, I guess we're gonna find out about that because I'm seeing something about the Supreme Court there. Some women who have been left behind by husbands are victims of the unfulfilled promises of changing circumstances. And as far as unfulfilled promises go, like as abhorrent as we find the dowry system to be, there is supposed to be an exchange happening there. It's not just like the woman, it should be getting something in exchange, even if it's wildly unfair. It shouldn't just be basically this is theft, right? And enslavement. Others, however, have been subject to outright deceit, their families defrauded of dowries, honeymoon expenses, and visa payments. There are few specific legal remedies available to women whose husbands flee, and pursuing the men under more general laws can be difficult if they are abroad. But 8 women have filed a petition with India's Supreme Court in an effort to press the government to enact policies to deal with what they call a widespread problem. So this is real and true activism here. 8 women in a country of over 1 billion people are trying to change how the whole system works so that these tens of thousands of women don't have to suffer in this way. So that is super admirable. Moon says, makes me wonder about these women's self-esteem. Does it cross their mind that the whole system hates them, or do they feel this is what they deserve? It's probably like it's all they know. They've grown up with this system as children. They witnessed it in effect, and they probably just think this is just how it is. And I'm sure some of them realize that it's a systemic problem, but maybe some of them feel if they're miserable in it, it's just them being miserable. Sharndeep Kaur's husband returned to his job in Italy 8 weeks after their wedding in 2014. Ms. Kaur has not seen him since in 9 years, over 9 years. Ms. Kaur's double bed with a single pillow at her home in the village of Fateh Nangal, Punjab. So rural place, fairly primitive, I'm guessing. A former judge who headed a commission looking into the issue in Punjab said there were 30,000 such cases in that state alone. While Punjab, India's only Sikh majority state, is home to some of the country's richest agricultural land, it has long struggled with unemployment and drug abuse. Billboards promoting English language training centers and visa consulting firms are evidence of an exodus abroad. Young men often force older relatives to sell land so they can emigrate. So in the state of Punjab, there were 30,000 cases of, and that's just in one state in India, of women being abandoned by their husbands. And this is an area where men are really trying to get out. But the question is, and I guess we know the answer to this question, because like my question is, well, why don't you just leave? Why marry a woman, trap her with your family, and then leave? What was the point of that? Well, I guess the point, it's almost like a human trafficking, right? The point is to steal these women, and because of the cultural expectation that they will then stay with the husband's family for the rest of their life and take care of his parents as they age. He has no responsibility. He's gone. He's off in the US or Canada or Europe somewhere. On one recent afternoon at a roundabout in Kotli, a village surrounded by rice and sugarcane fields, a dozen older men sat around under a tree discussing the problems of distressed farmers, low incomes, mountains of debt, and in some cases, suicide. That is why everyone wants to fly out of Punjab to realize their dollar dream, said Satnam Singh, 65, a retired school teacher. And these women are partly a result of those aspirations. He said that some husbands wanted to honor the promise of taking their wives abroad, but that either unforeseen events or strict visa rules prevented them from doing so. So they're in a rural area. There's a lot of issues. You know, the farmers are very poor. They're in debt. They want their son to get out, go to a foreign country where you can actually make money. I mean, I'm sure incomes are like extremely low in India relative to, like, you can do the same job in India in like say customer service or something, or you could try to find a job doing something similar abroad and make, 10 or 20 times the salary and send that home to your family. Maybe some of the men do have good intentions, but then it just doesn't work out. But if you're leaving 8 weeks after you get married and never coming back, it seemed like probably that was your plan from the beginning. Irene says, to sum it up very well, so he gets to go and find a stable career and do whatever he wants, and the woman is stuck with being a nurse and maid for the in-laws. Got it. An ad promoting visas and work permits for young men in Punjab who want to emigrate. Activists and experts described a more troubling pattern, one that was also seen in interviews with 12 women. The situation, they said, often plays out like this. Parents arrange to marry their daughter off to a returning Indian. They pay a dowry, practice long banned in India, but still common. So that's super interesting. Like, how do you get rid of that? How do you outlaw that? Because who is going to regulate it? Like, if both sides agree on it, there's going to be no one there to say this is bad and wrong. You shouldn't be doing it. Like, that would be very hard if the government banned that to actually enforce that, because it's like a private contract between two people. Like, it wouldn't be enforceable in the court, but still, if you both agree to it, oh, I'll give you $1,000 if you marry my daughter, then like, yeah, well, this too, surprised they were able to outlaw it at all. But again, like, you can't really get rid of that just by passing a law. Right, I mean, sure, there's a lot of things that are illegal that still happen. A lavish wedding follows with days of food and alcohol and dancing to Punjabi music. Then comes a honeymoon, also paid for by the bride's family. The husband flies out, and the wife waits for a visa while living with her in laws. The in laws demand money to secure the visa, but it never arrives. The wife, who is often illiterate, is kept under constant surveillance to keep control over her, damaging her psychologically. To Ms. Carr, who fled her in law's home after 5 months, it was like living in a dark dungeon. So she actually did get out. But this, it really just sounds like straight up human trafficking. I don't know how you could describe it in any other way. They're, being illiterate, you're so reliant and dependent upon other people to navigate the world if you can't read. And right, they essentially trap her. Other dangers can also lurk. Some women complain of being sexually exploited by other members of their husband's family because they have nowhere else to go, said Rakesh Kumar Garg, the retired judge who until recently headed the state commission on the issue. In a number of cases, men have used dowry money to pay immigration agents to land in wealthy countries like Canada, where Sikhs make up about 2% of the population. That's pretty high. Big Sikh population in Canada. The boys come, they enjoy, and they leave with the dowry money, Mr. Garg said. Then they get married again in foreign countries for citizenship. It is just treachery. Left behind women can be found everywhere in Punjab, a sign that the desperation to leave outweighs the many cautionary tales. So women know that this is happening. This is not some secret. right? That this is happening. They're aware, but they're so desperate to get out of India that they'll risk that this might happen to them. Maybe there are legitimate situations where the man and the woman are able to emigrate together, and they're hoping that will be the situation for them. It's sad that they use language like having to flee just shows how horrific it is. Irene says, "I hate to bring up reality TV." Totally fine to bring up reality TV, pop culture, celebrities. We talk about that stuff all the time. It's good data points for us. But so much of 90 Day Fiance is all about getting married for visas, women being in relationships with weirdo men just to get to the US. Yeah, because that scenario of marrying some weirdo is better than whatever is happening in your own country. And that's pretty sad. Colwinder Carr milks cows every day as part of her household work for her in-laws who are both bedridden. I am just like a servant in his house, she said. That cow is so cute. That's really sad. Ms. Carr holding a passport photo of her husband who left for Canada without telling her 9 months into their marriage. Without telling her? Oh my god. What? I feel like she's holding that photo as if she's, like, pining for him or something. It's just, like, the staging of the photo or whatever, how it's set up, like, very well may not be the case, but, um, my god. I mean, all you have to do is, like, hate a guy like that, right? "One lives here," said Colwinder Carr, who said she was herself tricked into marriage in 1999, probably before some of you were born, pointing from her terrace towards a door to the right of her house. "Another lives there," she continued, gesturing toward an entry gate made of bamboo to the left of her house. After her marriage, Ms. Carr, who is not related to Sharndeep Kaur, lived with her husband for 9 months in his parents' home in Kotli. He worked as a carpenter before he left for Canada without telling her. She continues to live with her in-laws, who are both bedridden, 24 years after her marriage. "I am just like a servant in his house," she said. I mean, the question is, like, would they have any if they left, like, what would life look for one of these women if they left? They probably can't go back to their own family, I'm guessing. So they really don't have any alternative. Um, they do they have a way to make money and support themselves? You know, it's gotta be pretty challenging that these places don't really have much of an economy. They're rural places, they're subsistence farming and stuff like that. Hmm, this is a great question. No wonder they all want sons. They get a live-in maid. Who takes care of the parents of the women who are sold? So that is great question, Hazel. I mean, married off, right? Ballistic said, with a very practical take here, is it bad that my first thought was at least she won't be forced to sleep with him while he's gone? True, true, true. Or have children of her own, which is interesting. It's like these women don't seem to be having children, right? Isn't that like kind of the goal of marriage? I mean, one of the goals, I guess, in this case, the goal is to get a free servant. Femme Fatale says, considering this is so common, I wonder why women in this province are still agreeing to marry. Like we were just talking about that. They're that desperate to, for the hope that marriage will be their ticket out of India. They just want to emigrate so bad. They're willing to take the risk. But this has happened to 30,000 women in that one state. I wonder how many people live in Punjab. Um, 30 million people. So that's pretty big, but still 30,000 out of 30 million is pretty significant. It's in the kind of the northernmost part of India. Blorbo says the photojournalist probably told her to hold it like that for an aesthetic picture. I agree. Because I can't imagine I can't imagine, although I don't know, people have all sorts of ways of dealing with, cognitive dissonance and trauma and everything. I can't imagine she's like holding a candle for this guy, you know what I mean? After he left her without telling her. What? They were married for 9 months. Like, it's so cold. It's so cold. Moon Moon says, I like saying they were sold over saying they were married off. Language matters. I totally agree. Yeah. Florbo says, I'm in media communications, guys. Trust me. It feels like they would be trapped with kids, although misogynistic culture there keeps women tied down regardless if they have kids or not. Still, I think it's like my gut feeling says it's better that they didn't have kids. I mean, pregnancy and all of that stuff is so plus it's so much work, so much more work, you know? Okay, she's taking I don't wanna, like, minimize this at all, but by, relative to having, several kids to take care of on top of taking care of 2 elderly people who are bedridden, like, that is bad enough. I don't wanna say that's, like, a silver lining in this, but man. On a recent bright morning, Satwinder Kaur Sati, who heads Omni, a support group for left behind women, was talking to visitors in her home in Ludhiana when her phone rang. Can you please help me? A woman asked as she cried over the phone after saying she had been beaten by her mother in law for failing to arrange money for her overseas son. Who's going to say it? Do I have to say it? I don't want to be the one to say it. That's a woman. That's how a woman is treating another woman. Where is the solidarity between women? When women can treat each other like that, do we have any hope for women as a class? When that's how women treat each other. There's no solidarity. Not only do the men have solidarity amongst themselves, but there are also these women who handmaiden the hell out of men. So there's this little group of women who want liberation, and we're just huddled together. I don't know. That's the black pill, right? Is that there's just no hope when that's the behavior of some women towards other women. At the woman's home, Ms. Sati, who also said she was a victim of a fraudulent marriage, encouraged her to file a police complaint, but the woman wanted to wait a few months. Your husband will never take you out. Remember this, Ms. Sati told her. File a police case or die waiting. Satwinder Kaur Sati, right, heads Abni, a support group for left behind women in Ludhiana, Punjab. Okay, so she's like a real one, you know? But the point is, like, it's this, amazing women helping women. So we love to see that. But it's like women helping women from the abuse of other women. And the man just ran away, Some women are fighting to have their husbands' passports impounded. Ravneet Kaur, like that's definitely something the government could do to get involved in this situation. Well, you want to abandon your wife, then you're not going to leave the country anyways. Either make good on your promise to your wife, or that's it, you're stuck here. And that would be a remedy that the government could impose. Anani says, off topic, but her yellow outfit is beautiful. Yeah, I like all their clothes. It's a very nice, like, I don't know, very aesthetic clothing there. The abusive woman is having to deal with her son and her husband too. Yeah, exactly. Like, if there was any sense of solidarity, I feel like there's at least would be the hope that things could change for women. But they're all sort of, just stuck. Ravneet Kaur, an English language tutor, sends email reminders every week to the authorities asking them to cancel the passport of her husband, Harpreet Singh Dhiman. That is possible under a federal law that can be used to revoke the passports of Indians who have gone overseas, leaving their wives behind if the husbands repeatedly refuse to appear before judges. Mr. Dhiman's parents moved to Canada on a business visa after Ms. Kaur's marriage in 2015. After living in different countries and making occasional trips back home to see relatives and his wife, Mr. Dhiman joined his parents in Canada in 2021. Ms. Kaur said she paid around $8,000 to her in-laws for paperwork and a visa. Where do they get that much money? That's like a fair amount of money here. Like, what is $8,000 worth in India? Let's see. Average Indian salary in USD. Let's try that instead. $430 a month. So $8,000 in India is like a crazy amount of money. It is sad when some women get so brainwashed they support their own oppression, or like they just don't feel like they have any other choice. Like it's just easier to go along. What's the alternative? They don't even have a way to survive that's not where they're not totally oppressed. We know, like, the one thing I do know about India is the women there do way more domestic labor than women anywhere else in the world. It's something like they average 5 to 6 hours a day of housework and stuff, which it's like, why and how? And the discrepancy too is like it's the most between what men do and women do. Like men essentially don't do any. They do like, 10 minutes a day or something of housework. Maybe they clear the dishes after dinner or something like that. I don't know. Something very trivial amount. And women, why are they put on a pedestal that they don't have to contribute anything domestically? Interesting question from Jessica. If these women were literate, would they try to go to a different country and skip the husband step? And Ballistic adds, education is freedom, which is certainly true. And I'm assuming they're just not, they are not educated. They don't get a chance, like illiteracy. Like you have had to really not go to school at all to be illiterate because they teach reading to kids right from it's like the first thing you learn in school, at least basic um, alphabet and all that kind of stuff. When something bad happens, some people want to stop it from happening to others. Others think I suffered. Why shouldn't you? That's sort of like a hazing kind of mentality or whatever. I went through it. Therefore, you should too. I mean, obviously, misery loves company. Her father-in-law, Kesar Singh, denied the assertion. So she's saying she paid $8,000 for paperwork and a visa. Let her prove it, Mr. Singh said by phone, adding that his son had filed for divorce before leaving India because the couple could not get along. Ms. Karal said she had received notice from a lawyer about the divorce filing late last month. Women in such cases rarely file for divorce themselves for cultural and financial reasons. So divorce is not common. Ravneet Karal has been sending email reminders every week to authorities asking them to cancel the passport of her husband who moved to Canada with his parents. Good for her. Ms. Karal showing a photo of the video surveillance system her in-laws used to track her. Ooh, that is spooky. I hope that doesn't trigger anybody. That is so creepy and spooky. Keeping women from education is a huge thing that keeps men in power. And even keeping women from speaking to each other on these kinds of topics, right? Ms. Corral filed a police complaint accusing her husband of domestic violence. The police often open investigations under such charges because the lack of specific laws addressing fleeing husbands and of keeping her under surveillance with cameras. The case, like most in India, is proceeding slowly. So she accused him of domestic violence because there is no law about this abandonment. And apparently keeping someone under surveillance is also against the law. I want to teach him a lesson, she said, so that he will remember forever what he did to me. Well, I would say good for her, but I would also say, like, if something like that, trying to teach somebody a lesson, if the system is not on your side and you're just going to suffer more yourself, then maybe it's better to like let it go. You have to kind of know when to hold them and know when to fold them, like pursuing it is good if something is ever going to come out of it, but if it's not, then it's probably just better to let it go because he doesn't care. Like that's the thing. I want to teach him a lesson so he'll remember forever what he did to me. He doesn't care. That's the thing that you have to realize about men. Like they don't care. They just move on. So trying to like punish them or something so that out of spite or whatever, which like no doubt she's entitled to like feel really terrible about what happened in that situation, but like men don't care unless you can put him in jail or hurt him financially or something. It's just better like to move on. Ballistic says, I must admit, I can't even imagine how it must be to be illiterate. I could read by the time I was 4, so I can't even really remember a time when I couldn't. Yeah, me too. My earliest memory is practically like I was reading books. I remember reading books, yeah, about 4 or 5. In the way that kids read books, which is you just basically memorize it or whatever. But, yeah, illiteracy, horrible problem. Irene says, "This entire live is making me check my privilege." You know, it's all relative, right? It's like saying these women, like, I guess you could say objectively have it much worse than Western women. This is awful, right? But that's not to say that the issues that women have with oppression in the West are also not real, or they're cosmetic, no pun intended, or something like that. You know what I mean? Like, we still have real issues here. Just because it's worse there doesn't diminish, yeah. Ballistic says, I like to think suffering is not a competition. You don't have to dismiss your hardships just because someone has it worse. So that's a very, very well said. Thank you. Totally agree. Anani says, definitely, I always feel that way, especially since becoming a rad femme. Any struggle is valid, though, as long as you aren't invalidating others, for sure. And I think it is important to learn about what's happening with other women in the world, at the very least, to make ourselves aware and, who knows, just get this out there that this is happening to women. Because these things are really not talked about, they're so kind of forgotten, or especially with cultural misogyny, people are like, oh, that's just how the culture is. That's such a common response to cultural misogyny as well. That's just their culture, and you don't understand it because you're American, you're white, and whatever, and that's just how they function. But it's like things that are per se misogyny are just, it's misogyny. We can call it out. We can acknowledge it. It doesn't mean you don't understand their culture or something like that. Harjinder Singh, the dairy worker in Italy married to Ms. Carr, said he too faced a domestic violence case after his wife had filed a complaint. In a phone interview, interesting they got a hold of this guy, he declined to offer his side of the story or defend his abandonment of his wife. I have nothing to add, he said. So it's really interesting he would even take a phone call from a New York Times journalist about this. No shame, right? I have nothing to say about this. It's her issue. I'm out here living my life. On a recent evening, Ms. Carr was standing on her parents' terrace so she is with her parents, when a man in a white shirt walked through a track in the middle of the wheat fields behind the house. I wish it was him, she said, her voice dropping to a hush, but I know he will never come back. Whoa, what? That is I wish it was him. Why? Oh, man. Oh, man. So that's kind of hearkening back to this photo, right? Of just I wish it was him. I wish he'd come back. Why? He's literally horrible. I get it though. I'm a heterosexual. I get it, but it's also why are we like this? Oh, Blorbo, Stockholm syndrome. I mean, she's stuck there in the middle of nowhere, right? Well, she's living with her parents apparently. No alternatives, can't get married to somebody else. probably lots of time on her hands to think about it and miss this guy who she was married to for 8 weeks. Like, wild. A couple riding through fields in Punjab. While Punjab is home to some of the country's richest agricultural land, it has long struggled with unemployment and drug abuse. It does look beautiful there in a way. Okay, so that's it. That's the article. Wow. The article was by a man, Samir Yassir. Samir Yassir is a reporter for the New York Times covering the intersection of identity, politics, conflicts, and society. Interesting. So it seems like he writes about India. And yeah, I would say that was a pretty good article. Like, and this appeared in the print edition with the title "For Abandoned Wives in Punjab, Life is a Dark Dungeon." Let's check out the comments. Some women wish their abuser would just turn back into the man she thought he was at first to just come back and make things right. It's a fantasy. I guess that's probably like a natural thing your brain does or something for how our brains operate, I guess. I don't know. Oh, interesting. Moon says, brainwashed by Bollywood romance. I tutored an Afghan woman in the US who married her cousin at 16. She watched romance movies all day long while she cared for her kids. Oof. This is a nice comment. I like to believe that every part of the world is beautiful, no matter how misogynistic it is. Nature is healing. Nature is very healing. I got out into nature today. I went on a trail. It was super nice. Very nice. So here's the top comments. Such is the status of women in so many places in the world. Here in the US, this is the status conservatives would like to return us to, completely dependent on men for economic support, status, legal rights, and autonomy. Someone asked me to talk about Pearl. I already forgot her name. Just Pearly Things. I don't remember her full name. Pearl something. Anyways, she's like a conservative, doesn't think women should be able to vote and stuff like that. And I'm like, do these people have any chance of like gaining steam? Like, obviously conservatives won on the abortion thing, and that's like a total dystopian nightmare in so many places in the world. But like, do they have any chance of taking the vote away from women? You know? It's so damn hot out here. Super hot here too. I'm gonna make a little vlog for my shorts. I'm just like loving making shorts lately. I went to run on this trail. Incidentally, I'm gonna put this in the short, but when I went to this trail that's like really it's in the middle of nowhere, and I went there by myself. And like normally I go to a park where there's like a lot of people around and I feel like really safe because there's just like people everywhere. But I went to this trail that's like in the woods, like not a house for miles kind of thing. And I pull up to the trail and there was just a single pickup truck there. Pickup truck to me means man. And I'm like, "Oh no." because I am more afraid of encountering a man on the trail than anything else. And I had to just tell myself, like, you're going to be okay, but it makes me anxious, actually. I would much rather encounter a bear than a man. Anyways, misogyny is the world's #1 crime against humanity. I wish everyone could agree on that. Because it's so pervasive. It's in every culture. It's in every country. There are bad crimes against humanity happening right now. There are enslaved people, many of whom are women. I think the majority of enslaved people in the world are women. But just the pervasiveness of misogyny in general, the many shades of it, it's everywhere. It really, it kind of out classes or something anything bad that's happening to men. Like, war is also awful, but women also suffer in war. I'm not sure who suffers worse in war. Hillary Clinton said women suffer worse in war. She got really razzed for that. But I think in many ways, women suffer at least as bad as men do, especially because it's men who start wars and stuff, right? So women have nothing to do with it. So it's sort of kind of like any suffering that women go through is like pure in that way. Like Irene says, men created war too. Hopefully that's making sense. Hazel says it's in every religion. It's just so normalized. It's like we don't even see it. I've said this so much, but we don't even see it. Like, we have to become aware of it before we expect to do anything about it. Misogyny is the world's #1 crime against humanity. Yes, it is, and so widely accepted. The abuse described here is close to the nadir of a pattern of oppression towards women by men. The actual nadir is Sharia law, which reduces women to broodmares and children. I often wonder about the Marie Curies, the Rosa Parks, the Malalas, the Maya Angelou's lost to these societies oppressed beyond repair. That's the thing about oppressing women, is that everyone loses, because everyone loses, right? We lose out on anything these women would have invented, anything, art they would have created, or literature, or scientific discoveries, or medical discoveries, or anything like that. We could have the solution to climate change. Maybe we wouldn't have this problem in the first place. All these things, if women were able to rise above this essentially slavery state. Misogyny is so ancient and entrenched in human history and culture. Sometimes I wonder if we'll have to do a complete do-over to get rid of it. Well, we're all going to die soon. So we're not going to get a do-over. We're just all going to be gone. I don't think there's going to be any chance for misogyny to be alleviated. There isn't really any hope. Sorry. So just enjoy the now. Salad Caesar says it perfectly there. Enjoy the now to the extent you can. If you're in a position to enjoy the now, then enjoy the now. Bold of you to assume men appreciate societal progress. They'll be the first ones to tell you that men are responsible for any progress we make in society. Gee, I wonder why that is. Maybe it's because women have been systemically held back from any position where they could have contributed for like thousands of years. Ginny says, wasn't there some kind of study done that showed countries/societies in which women were more oppressed were actually less developed? I mean, like, you have to do a study, just look around. Exactly. The most developed countries have the least inequality, and the least developed countries have the most inequality. If you were a leader of, an underdeveloped country or whatever, wouldn't that be like the first thing that you would try to address is like, how can we make our country and our society better? Well, look at what all of the relatively better societies are doing. They're involving women. They're allowing women to be employed. They're, allowing women to be educated. They're not forcing women to have 6 or 7 children each and die in childbirth and stuff. Like they're not competitive, like Moon says. They're excluding 50% of their population from the workforce. Speaking of the Taliban, can't compete with other countries. Make no mistake, so much of what ails us here in the West is rooted in sexism. Misogyny is so deeply ingrained as to be missed daily. This very paper, as an example, still runs the occasional analysis of what a woman in power is wearing. As we read last week, we read a whole article about that. It did happen to be pretty interesting, I think. As though that is a thing worth discussion when it's a woman, but rarely if it's a man. The latest example of that was a piece on Cassidy Hutchinson's outfit, an exemplary young woman of courage reduced to her clothes. So this is such a great comment. On a broader spectrum, we can discuss the widespread sexual abuse. The fact that 1 out of 5 women will be sexually assaulted in their lifetimes is exemplified in Me Too. And I would argue that 5 out of 5 women are impacted by sexual assault because of its frequency. It's not a rare thing. Like I'm saying, I went for a trail run today, and when I got to the trail in the middle of nowhere, there was one other car there. I had my fingers crossed that there would be no other cars there, but there was another car there, and it was a pickup truck, which usually driven by men. And I'm like, oh God, right? The fear of encountering a man out in the middle of nowhere is so real. Yes, the rest of the 5 are in constant anxiety. Exactly. All 5. Right. Then the ones who have experienced it before are also in constant anxiety, hypervigilance, and men don't have that. A man can just go to the trail and get out of the car and go for a run. Like, he doesn't have the psychic, like, I was anxious. It made me run slower, ironically, because I just didn't feel as good being there, knowing that, I could encounter a man. I don't know if I mentioned this before, but it ended up being a little family. It was a man and a woman and 2 kids, and they were fishing in the creek there. But I actually didn't know that until I was finishing up my run. They all came back to their car as I was finishing up, but the whole time I'm out there for an hour thinking, what if I encounter a man on the trail? Terrifying thought. What's the likelihood? Very low. Like, the likelihood someone's actually gonna, like, really hurt you or even approach you or anything it is super low. But it's like the fear never goes away, Women make up disproportionately low numbers of leadership across every aspect of our society. Women are paid less than men. Women are subjected to more microaggressions and have to fight harder for basic rights. Women are prey in dark parking lots, and women have now lost bodily autonomy in a number of places in this country, with more to come. Every person who cares about the subject needs to speak up, or it will never change. Just delete the rest of this comment, and just, this is all you need. Who's going to speak up? Men benefit from it. And I don't know. Oh, this is an interesting comment. Oops. So many people like straight up just don't connect sexual abuse and violence to misogyny. It's insane. Like that's interesting. I mean, to me, they're very connected. Hazel says they tell us from puberty to keep ourselves safe, what not to wear, not to go alone, then gaslight us like we're crazy for being anxious about it. We've been told this since birth. Yeah, and I'm gonna put this in my short, and I'm kind of like, as I was writing the script for it, I was like, will people make fun of me if I say that I was anxious because there was a car at the trail, like, and it could just be a lone man? Like, I feel like people will make fun of a woman for saying that, right? Like, I show up at the trail and there's like a pickup truck there, and it makes me anxious knowing I might encounter a man. I feel like they'll be like, "Oh, you're really paranoid or something." But what's the alternative to being paranoid, you know? Ballistic says we really can't win if you take care of yourself. You're paranoid. If something happens, they'll say it's your fault because you weren't careful enough. That's it. That's it. You can't win. What can you do? Just, you know, hide in your room. Moonwind says trust your intuition. It's there to keep you alive. Men always try to undermine it. Yeah, I mean, I really thought twice about like, should I go out for a run today? And then I just told myself, you know, this is the thing about running. I used to be able to run 5.5, 6 minute mile. I could outrun virtually any man. And I really do think, I don't know, I haven't done any research on this, but I think that male runners, like who actually could have caught me when I was fast, they have like lower testosterone or something. I don't know. Like I feel like someone who could actually run that fast wouldn't wouldn't have an inclination to hurt a woman. That's just like probably get shit for that, but whatever. But yeah, I could outrun like any man. And so that was the thing. Like I felt like, okay, that's the thing that's going to keep me safe. But I'm really slow right now. Like I couldn't outrun anybody. I definitely couldn't fight anybody off. But when I was fast, I never felt scared to go on a trail by myself. Cause I thought if a man ever starts to like approach me, I'll just run in the other direction and I can outrun him. And there was a lot of power in that. And I think that's women's only chance. Physically, you could take all the self-defense classes in the world. You could study martial arts for years and years. You're not going to be able to fight off even like an average dude. That's just a fact. But running is your chance. And more women should do it. Even if you don't like it, you should do it because it's good for you and it makes you safer. And it's one reason I'm doing it now. I mean, I love running, but it's there as a reason for sure. Afghanistan, Iran, Pakistan, and India, nations where men stand tall in the backs of women, and the US. Your list is small compared to reality. Missed. I mean, how many countries are there? 198 or something like that. It's everywhere. Is there any country where there's total equality? No. Is there any country where women are the social majority? No. It just doesn't exist anywhere. I was thinking about how the US has had 46 male presidents and no female presidents. Just like as a thought experiment, imagine, just imagine, like meditate on this idea. Imagine if it had been 46 female presidents and everyone's like, Wonder when we're gonna get a male president. It gets so normalized in the other direction, but when you flip it, it's like, "Whoa, yeah, imagine that. Imagine that." I cannot imagine being in the social majority. Most men are completely unempathetic about women's fears unless it's something cute to them, like walking to you to your car. Ugh. Yeah, men would never shut up about it, and we shouldn't be either. We should be, like, never shutting up about it. When the hell are we gonna get real female leadership? We can never have anything resembling equality. Yeah, what if the next well, it's 46 presidents there have been. What if the next 46 presidents were all female? People would be like, "Whoa, that's so crazy." That's what Ruth Bader Ginsburg said. They said, "How many women on the Supreme Court?" I guess the question was something like, "How many women would have to be on the Supreme Court for you to feel like it's, like, equal now?" And she said 9. And people were blown away by that, and she said, "Yeah, well, there were 9 men forever, and no one questioned that. So, 9 women, why would people even question that? They don't question it when it's men. The next 46 presidents being all female seems totally fair." Yeah, like Blorbo says, totally fair. Hazel says the first woman president will probably be trans. If only. Don't forget America, we just outlawed abortion in more than half the country and are moving towards a theocracy. Again, that's speaking of the Supreme Court, very theocratic. I actually have a video about that. I think the video is called like Our Christian Court or something like that. This is why laws are so important. We cannot rely on individuals to just do the right thing, clearly. So I grew up in a culture similar to this one. It starts from the very beginning. Male babies are wanted and valued, and girls are okay as placekeepers until the mother can have another go for a boy. It is like air and water. As a girl, you know where you fit in and your role. I remember being 6 to 7 years old, cleaning the floors with a bucket full of water on my hands and knees while my brother played outside. Ugh. You're brought up to know your place, and most good girls accept it. There is a well known saying for disobedient girls: either you beat your daughter or you later will beat yourself for disobedience and shame she will bring on you. When you give your daughter an education and they have the ability or the opportunity to leave, they may do so or become mouthy. Why waste an education on a girl who will never use it but for disobedience? I left. It tears you apart, leaving your family and never seeing them again, but you do so to have the opportunity to live like a human being. The guilt and the pain subside, but never completely go away. I think it's a great comment. Just, it's very insightful to the reality there. Okay. So that's that. We have 45 minutes. What do you all want to talk about? I actually pulled a few other things that are okay. Switching gears a little bit. I just thought this headline was crazy. I haven't read this article yet. Blood of young mice extends life in the old. Don't tell billionaires. What a dystopian headline. Blood of young mice extends life in the old. Then we've got, I don't know if anybody heard about this one. Let's see, just finishing up here. That comment is so heartbreaking. The logic never made sense to me. When you keep your daughter under surveillance and beat them, they are more likely to lash out due to trauma. I don't know, man. Maybe they're not, though. Aw, the mouse is cute. I agree. What a little cutie pie. Totally scary headline. Totally dystopian. I'm glad I'm old. Nobody will be taking my blood to live longer. Time for my baby mouse blood smoothie. Ugh. Okay, then we've got this headline here. Did y'all hear about this? The whales gathered in a heart shape. Experts feared what would come next. A pod of nearly 100 pilot whales displayed unusual behavior before beaching themselves in Australia. More than 50 died, and the rest were later euthanized. What do the whales know? The whales are committing mass water slide. Here's what they looked like before they all swam up on the beach to K themselves. What do they know? What do they know? Whale cults. Not the whales. I think this story is these are the scary headlines, right? It's crazy. I was talking to my dad about this and he's like, "Yeah, whales do that. They do that from time to time." But I'm like, "Yeah, but why? We don't know why." It's kind of scary when it's something like outside of our comprehension like that. Whalians. Whales are beautiful, majestic creatures as well. But then you've got this. With Florida ocean temperatures topping 100. What? Experts warn of damage to marine life. What? How the hell is the ocean water is 100 degrees? What is that Celsius? 100 F to C. 37.7 degrees Celsius. Almost 38 degrees Celsius. The ocean water. What does it got to be like to swim in that? Like that's like bath water, isn't it? With the sun and everything. It's so hot in Florida right now that the ocean temperature in one area just crossed into the triple digits. On Monday, a water temperature sensor in Manatee Bay near the Everglades National Park recorded a temperature of 101.1 degrees. Scorching conditions could pose a major risk to coral and other marine life, which, like, we should be very concerned about that because we live in an ecosystem where certain plants and animals are reliant on the circle of life, they're reliant on other plants and animals for survival. And when you eliminate one species, sometimes there's a chain reaction, and we are actually part of that ecosystem. The fish will already come cooked, right? How do they survive in that? Oh, man. Moon, you're planning to move to Florida next year. Good luck with that. I was thinking this too, mass S word to lessen their own population. Soup temperature. So those are the other headlines of the day that I wanted to share with you all. Hi, welcome to Grandma's Basement. It's chatting time. I thought the article was very good, very enlightening, kind of depressing. I think only a man could have written that article, because I don't think like the couple of the interviews with men, they wouldn't have spoken to a female journalist, maybe, right? So we love a Nigel who steps up and writes about women's rights. I mean, it's much more than most men are doing, so good for him. Irene says, this is random, but have you heard of furniture-free living? I've actually been living like that for the past week. Did you just move or something? Furniture-free living. We need to declutter here. This is a real mess. I doubt that I'll like make anything of the space before the before the summer's up and I'm back upstairs in my other set. I'm down here because we don't have air conditioning, and it's actually like pretty nice down here. It's probably like 70 because it's a basement. It's underground. And it's super hot upstairs. Apparently, it's supposed to be very good for your body. That's really interesting. Irene says, I'm without furniture temporarily. I will tell you that when I moved into a house 1 year in college, and I didn't have a bed for a week, and I slept on a hardwood floor. I think I slept on like a yoga mat or something like that I had. But basically I was like on a hardwood floor. Maybe I had a yoga mat and like one thin like blanket. And the first night was horrible. And every night it got better till I was like sleeping better than I've ever slept in my life. And I know in some countries and stuff, they do sleep on like kind of a hard surface or whatever, like a wooden bed or whatever with like a very thin, blanket or something. And I think that there is something to that. It makes you shift around more rather than staying still. Yeah, there definitely could be something to that. I always like the idea of like, people do this like just a futon straight on the floor. So you get like a couple inches of cushioning, but essentially it's like hard. I think if I moved, maybe I would consider something like that. I mean, I have a bed now, but yeah. Interesting. Barbie. I haven't seen it. I don't know. I have mixed feelings about going to see it. I have read some spoilers and stuff, so I kind of know a little bit about it. But I don't really know what it's about. And I don't like to support anything corporate, consumeristic, capitalistic any more than I have to. And I think the movie just got so promoted, so many corporate tie-ins and this whole commercial machine around it, that it really turned me off from wanting to see it. At the same time, it's by a female director. It's, focused on female characters. Apparently, like most of the speaking is done by female characters. So that's good because that's kind of rare. Moon says, I saw the Barbie movie. It was surprised with how strong the feminist message was, but it all fell flat as this is just a way for Mattel to rebrand Barbie and sell more dolls. My hot take is that Kens are actually representing women, not the Barbies. Interesting. Lorbo says my dad has a Japanese futon and he swears by it for his back. All the rad femmes I've spoken to loved Barbie, interestingly enough, like loved Barbie growing up. Ginny says Barbie was bad in my opinion. No spoilers. It wants to be feminist while also portraying the patriarchy as just men being silly, harmless buffoons. Okay. Oh, I am not, I don't mind about spoilers because even if I do see it, I don't really care if I know what it's about. But yeah, maybe spoiler alert to anybody else here. I feel like everyone, like, I don't know. I feel like people would have seen it already if they wanted to see it. But I guess it's only been out for one weekend. I know how it ends. I've read that. Spoiler alert. If you don't want to know how it ends, maybe mute. But like it ends with her going to the gynecologist or something. And then I've read a few little things about it, about like I don't know. Anyways, Hazel says it's been out for one weekend, yet it feels like an eternity. I know, because it's just been like so hyped for so long. It portrayed men. I'm like, now your comments are kind of making me more intrigued. It portrayed men as just accidentally bad or something. They just need some sweet female encouragement to find their way. Yeah, this is how I feel too. I'll watch it when it comes to streaming platforms. Yes, Oslo. It's hard to do that. Some of the writing was hilarious. Ryan Gosling is great as men, or Ken, I guess you mean, but the plot of the story was poorly done. Yeah, and like I think I've only seen one Greta Gerwig movie. I saw Frances Ha, and I think it's a really great movie. I recommend it to anybody. I don't know what it's streaming on, but really, really good. And my ex-boyfriend loved that movie too, incidentally. But it's just a really good portrayal of female relationships and the reality of them, that they're not always like great, right? I don't think I've seen any of her other movies. I haven't seen Little Women. I think she directed, and what was the other movie? Something with bird in the title or something like that. Yeah, I'm sort of curious about it. I'm curious about it. I don't have a lot else to talk about. Oh, thanks. Like the stream. Please do. Keeps me going. I thrive on likes. I feel like I'm at a little crossroads with the channel. Like I have this feminist audience, but then I don't get like a ton of, I feel like I don't get a ton of feedback or engagement or whatever. Like that's just gonna sound like I'm complaining, but it makes me wonder if I should continue in that direction or go in some other direction where like I can find an audience who will be more engaged with the stuff that I make. I've really been enjoying putting out the fitness content. It's not really like a ton of effort to make it. That's the other thing. And I don't know if that could be more of a direction that I want to go in. And it's just something I've been thinking about this for like a very long time. Supercharge me with likes. I just don't know if there's like an audience for the kind of stuff that I make. And it's like, yeah, that's it. I'm just gonna, follow my rainbow or whatever. I'm gonna follow my rainbow, and people like it, they like it, they want to engage with it, whatever. I like doing these streams and like bringing awareness to topics that people are interested in. That's why I have you all vote on what you want to hear about. But then I don't know. It's like also entertaining for me to do it. The streams I like doing. I'm going to keep probably doing the yoga, hopefully on Saturday mornings. But yeah, I don't know. What else? Do I have anything else I really want to talk about? Yeah, I like doing the fitness content. I like doing the shorts. I've been thinking about doing it forever, and I've been like, oh, that's going to be so hard, and everybody else does it so well, and to like jump into this thing. But I don't know if I'm like, screwed over with the algorithm at this point with this channel. Like, do I start a fresh channel? I've been literally thinking about that for a year. Like, oh, I want to do fitness shorts. Do I start a fresh channel and try to make a go of that? Or do I do it here? Because I don't know. I feel like YouTube's never really going to feed my stuff in the algorithm at this point. It's been 7 years. So, oh, this is nice. Thank you. Oops. Oh, what? Hazel? Thank you so much. That is so kind. Oh my gosh, I really appreciate that. Thank you. Thank you for being here and being part of this community, and well, also your comments and stuff. Thank you. Ginny says, when it comes to RadFem content overall, it's never going to be mainstream. True. True, true, true. True. Yes. Clap for our sponsor. Thank you. Appreciate that very much. I feel humbled. Yeah, I do my best. I don't know. I still have here's the thing. I still have a lot of video ideas, and I'm like, I don't know. I have a lot of ideas of things that I want to do. So I I again really appreciate it. Thank you. Yeah, I love this community too. Like, that's the thing. Everyone comes just with such interesting ideas, and like, y'all make it easy in the chat to do the streams, because I'm like just reading your brilliant ideas the whole time. So that's a nice aspect of all of this. Just to get, yeah. I think a new fitness channel could be good, but it would attract a brand new audience beyond your current viewers who turn in. A lot of fitness viewers are misogynistic males, unfortunately. I agree. Yeah, and I don't really want that. That's, but then I'm not sure. It's very gratifying to me to like post a fitness video and then see women here from this community being like, oh, you inspired me, or like, I also work out, and hearing about what people do, because it's something I am so passionate about. And it's something that I've kind of put to the side since I've been making this content. Like, I haven't tapped into that, into that part of that thing that interests me. And it's like, it's kind of giving me life again, like to share something that I feel really passionate and interested in about. But then I do feel like maybe like feminists don't care really about fitness, which like also kind of breaks my heart because I'm like, because I just feel like fitness should be the top of our individual feminist praxis. I really think it should be the top thing we're doing. Like I said, literally, you know, it's truly a source of power for women. And I have made a video about this a few months ago, but last year I talked about how I actually hadn't worked out. I when I discovered radical feminism, it was around when I stopped working out for another reason, for health reasons, because I was going through a period of poor health. So I basically stopped working out. And but then I discovered radical feminism, and then I actively didn't work out. Like I was sort of actively sedentary, if that makes sense, because I was afraid that if I started to work out again, I would start to see myself through like a sexualized lens, and I would start to judge my body. And I was like, I am totally happy with where I'm at physically. And I don't want to get into those thought patterns of being like, seeing myself like because women's fitness is so sexualized. So I didn't want to like get into that. But then I'm like unhealthy. Like my cholesterol is high, and like my heart and my lungs are just really not functioning well, and I can't walk without getting out of breath and stuff like that. And I'm like, what am I doing? This is the other side of it, right? Like I am not working out because I feel like that feels like feminist praxis to me, to not exercise. This is how messed up kind of my mind became. And then I talked about that last summer, like, oh, I'm having this battle in my mind. Like, I want to start working out again. But I'm afraid that if I do, I will fall into thought patterns of like, I'll fall into thought patterns of seeing myself in an objectified way, because women's fitness is so focused on objectification. And I don't want to do that, because I felt liberated, and I feel like I look good, and I feel, just totally content and neutral about my body. And then I talked about that, and I told this whole story about that, and like people really came down on me very hard. And anyways, whatever. I have a video about this I made a few months ago. I did end up deciding like I wanted to start exercising, because I just wanted to start getting out and being like in the world again after COVID and all that stuff too. So I started riding my bike. I joined a rowing club. Started going to the gym a little bit here and there. I started swimming, and like it's been very positive. And now that I've had this year of kind of exercising as a radical feminist, right? Like, that it's really changed my feeling about what exercise can be. That being said, like, I do feel somewhat like I am analyzing my body more than I was when I wasn't exercising. So I am sort of looking at my size and stuff like that. And I don't know if that's avoidable. I want to make content that shows women that you can exercise in a liberated way, because I do genuinely believe that it's so good for your health, and it is a source of power. But then I know in my head I am looking at my body at least a little bit, trying not to, but that's kind of reality. I don't want to portray that, but then I feel like I'm lying, Like, I don't want to portray, oh, I'm exercising this totally perfectly mentally liberated way and I never think about my appearance and whatever, and that I'm like lying. I've never, there's one thing I want to do when it comes to social media or whatever, it's not to lie. Oh, Irene says, another thing is with dance, I prefer hip hop dance, but the most, but sometimes the movements get so sexualized if you have the wrong teacher. I think engaging with women focused on 35 plus female fitness creators could definitely cater to the audience you want. That would boost recommendations for you under similar channels videos. I haven't really found, I actually do watch a lot of fitness YouTube, and I haven't found, a lot of that kind of content that's sort of like positive, body positive. I know that's a really loaded term, but like just, body neutral or body positive, like older women's fitness. Your fitness content inspires me. I went through a similar period of chronic illness, and even though I haven't been active yet, I'm ready when I move to a walkable place. Good. I'm glad to hear that. Yeah, that's the other thing. I've dealt with like a ton of chronic illness issues, and that adds an extra challenge to exercise. And like, I've been doing the little running vlogs or whatever, and it's like, well, why are you making a running vlog showing that you're running 12-minute pace or something? Like, who cares? Like, there's so many people, there are women out there breaking world records, and like, what's your like dumbass like 12-minute pace video? Why is that worth watching? Or like, what's the point of even doing that? And the way I think of it is like, there are so many people who can't even do that, but it's like kind of attainable. It's like attainable. Like, I mean, I couldn't run at all a month ago, and I've just started off running a few minutes at a time, and now I'm like gradually building up. And today I ran 12 minutes, which it's like, again, it's like not a lot, but I feel like showing that side of things that's like attainable. I did make another video. I haven't put it out yet, but of just showing, like, last year I couldn't do a push-up. I couldn't even do one push-up, and now I can do a few. I haven't really trained push-ups. I've just gotten stronger from doing yoga and stuff. But it's like, well, doing like a few push-ups is not really impressive. Is that worth making a video about? Yeah, because a year ago I couldn't do any. And I'm sure there's plenty of women out there who can't do any. And maybe they would get inspiration from like seeing seeing a woman, working up from nothing to a little bit. Fitness is really like a challenging thing because it's like, well, what's your angle? Like, there's so much fitness content out there. It's like, what differentiates you from anything else, Yeah, this is like how I feel, and this is why I'm doing it, is that I can't get inspired by seeing someone who's already in insane shape, because that doesn't look anything like me and like this point in my journey. And it's just going to frustrate me to look at that stuff and be like, yeah, hold on a second. Hazel says, even a channel like Single and Thriving type thing. So many women are sick of dating, sick of men. Seeing a woman living her life could be inspiring. Yeah, and I follow a couple women who are like child free, and I think that stuff is really cool. And like, I'm like, I still like have ideas for like feminist and even gender critical content I want to make, and I'm like, how do I make that at this point? Like, especially if all my new subscribers now are coming from the fitness content. So now if I put out a video, like I had an idea for a video I want to do. I have a hot take about non-binary women, specifically white heterosexual women who identify as non-binary or queer. And my take is that, and I would love to make a video about this, but now it feels like almost I feel disconnected from making that kind of content. Like 2 years ago, that would have made sense as a video for me to make, but now I feel like it would be weird for me to make a video about that. But basically, like my take is that because white heterosexual women can no longer name any oppression, even though we experience oppression as females, in order to speak about our oppression, we have to opt into this LGBTQ oppression, because you really can't speak about oppression as a white woman anymore. And yeah, that's basically. I could elaborated on it a little bit more, and I could definitely make like a 5-minute video about it. And I would like to, because I feel like that's something that some of my audience would be interested in. It just feels weird to be putting out those two very different kinds of content at the same time, like that stuff and then doing the fitness stuff. I have no idea. I just feel I need like a social media manager. I have no plan, no direction, and it just feels very weird to me. No one cares about misogyny, so you have to opt out just to be taken seriously. There's that aspect of it too. I guess what I'm saying is more like women still have this desire, like women still feel oppressed for being female, and they still have this desire to speak about oppression, but they can't speak about it any longer from just saying, I'm female. Like, acknowledge that oppression, please. Now they have to opt into something else to even be able to speak about it, because if you complain about anything as a white woman, you're just a Karen. Yeah, Irene says women's oppression is too boring now compared to non-binary, xenogender, gender flux phobia. Yeah. And Liz says people don't take women seriously, so you have to identify as something else to be heard. Exactly. That's the exact point that I want to make. And I don't think I've ever heard anyone like talk about it in that way. So I feel like it's an original idea, which are pretty rare, right? Femme Fatale says, OMFG Lisa, 4 exclamation points, on the money with that. Leaving an abusive relationship, the first and seemingly only sanctuary for me was the LGBTQ plus community. Very, very interesting. Ginny says, Lisa, please do not think there's a genre of videos you have to stick to. Just speak your mind and make the videos you want to make. That's kind of what I'm doing right now. And I think I will continue to do that. And I've been thinking about Vlogust, and I did Vlogust 2 years ago. And it was just, I don't think I would do vlogs. I don't think I would do follow me around kind of vlogs at this junction, outside of, making vlog type content for the shorts or whatever. But I would like to do some sit down and freestyle on topics, because that can be very enjoyable to do. Anani says, when you attempt to opt out of being female, only one side will hear you, and even barely at that. Even then, one side is unfortunately better than none. Yeah. And again, I'm not saying it's because I get that aspect of it too. And I think Hazel also said that the idea that you're like the internalized misogyny or whatever, like that you're opting out, because everyone knows I've talked about my journey here several times, but like I got to be gender critical by initially thinking I was going to identify as non-binary or a man or whatever for like an extremely brief period, like literally days, where I was like, oh, I found the key, I found the way out. But yeah, I'm talking about something a little bit different, which is that women are maybe subconsciously frustrated by the fact that they are not allowed to speak about women's oppression, especially like I say, white women. I think it could apply to other women. Obviously, I see things from a white woman's perspective. And I'm thinking specifically of white women because white women, first of all, you're told you have cis privilege. So you're like, how can you speak about women's oppression? Because you are actually privileged. You have cis privilege, and then you have white privilege on top of that. So you're really, as a white woman, you're really at the top. But that's actually factually not the case. White women still experience oppression and feel oppression for being women, but we're not, exactly like Ginny says, women are losing the words to talk about their oppression. And people act like white women are the most privileged demographic out there, as if white men aren't a thing. And I would also make the argument that white women are oppressed by all men, not just white men. But I guess is there an argument to be made that white women stand above men of other races? I don't know. I haven't really put a ton of thought into that. But that's the basic idea, is that if you say, oh, I'm non-binary, now you are free to once again speak about oppression. And I think many women have that desire or drive to speak about oppression, and they don't have an outlet for doing it because they can no longer, City Bike Sarah, so her actual name, is definitely fits into that. That's another thing that I wanted to make a video, but then I felt like, oh, the time passed. But then Pamela Paul just wrote, that was like a month and a half, 2 months ago, just writing an article about it now. So maybe the time hasn't passed. People seemed very energized by that topic. I was definitely energized by it when it happened, and maybe it's still worth talking about. Something else, that I've been thinking about recently is, if you look at, there were 4 things. If you look at the City Bike woman, if you look at Amber Heard, I'm blanking on the third one, but then most recently, there was this gal in Alabama who supposedly or apparently faked her kidnapping. And I'm like mad at myself because there's a fourth one, and they all fit together like very beautifully. The vitriol that these women faced for their perceived wrongs, even when they weren't wrong, or whatever, it's so disproportional to like whatever they did, even in the case of someone being wrong, that it feels like, there's so much misogyny that's just totally like the background level of misogyny is very high. And yet at the same time, there are these incidents where they serve what seems like as a pressure valve for just being totally misogynistic and hateful towards women. So, like, the things that people have said about some of these women, and whether they were in the right or the wrong or whatever, it doesn't matter. Like, whatever your opinion on Amber Heard is, it doesn't matter. The misogyny that she was subjected to was completely like off the charts and completely disproportional and whatever. And it's like shocking, actually. And just this woman in Alabama faking her kidnapping it's really similar, like the comments you see about these things. And I mean, the comments about the city bike lady, she didn't even do anything. She didn't even do anything wrong whatsoever, right? Like Occam's razor. Would a pregnant lady approach a pack of teenage boys and steal a bike from them? Like, almost certainly no. Plus, she had the receipts to prove that that wasn't the situation. And she got death threats. What? She didn't even do anything wrong. People are just so quick to like want to, you know, they want an outlet for this misogyny. Liz says, if you say white women are bad instead of just women are bad, you get leftist progressive participation points and you're not seen as sexist. That's it, dude. I've been talking about women's rights on YouTube for 3 years, I think, or something like that. And I've gotten that a lot. I've gotten white women a lot. It's like, okay, I don't know. There's not, like, how is that not racist? There's nothing I can do about it. There's nothing I can't change my skin color to make my opinion valid. You know? I don't know if you can hear that. There's a plane flying like very low overhead. Then any woman who dares vocalize about her abuse, about being a victim, and people demonize her as a liar. Yeah, very true. Oh, sorry. First part of this. A woman finally K-words her abuser and is thrown in prison. Yeah. That's it. The amount of white guys making white woman jokes, meanwhile, they're white themselves. I like you guys finishing each other's thoughts. That's very cute. Ballistic says, I'm mixed race and progressives will change whether they consider me black or white, depending on if they agree with me or not. Nix says, I am a Mexican white woman, what they now call a white Texican. I'm working class, but it's true. Most white people in Mexico are well off. It's undeniable. I am also told I ain't oppressed. Still a woman. Incidentally, I had a boyfriend who I lived with, serious boyfriend, who was white and Mexican also. And or like, I think he described himself as like a white Hispanic, but he was Mexican. And he was totally, you know, white passing or whatever, but he would opt into the Mexican identity when it would benefit him. So that was interesting. Well, yes. You know. True. I mean, that was their rationale, but then they came back later and said, "Oh, we've had our eye on you for a while because you've talked about being antinatalist and you've talked about makeup in a way we don't like and stuff like that." So I you know, the ultimate excuse they gave was you're racist because you're white and you need to just stick to speaking about white people issues, which is very racist. Like, it's wild. And I do, you know, a lot of people have said, yeah, rad femme spaces have a racism problem. I agree. And I think that's an example of that. Saying that only people of whatever color should only speak about issues that concern people of that color. That's per se racist. Abby, you're super late. We're like wrapping up. It wasn't like not too crowded in here today. And I feel like I said a lot. That's my review of my stream today. The working class is also oppressed by the ruling class. So there's another access other than being female, which gets you treated as less than in most spaces. I think it's so weird they think all radfems are white and racist. There's so many Black and Asian women in the movement. Very, very true. I have been on Twitter, though. I haven't been on Twitter at all this week. I went on the last couple weeks. And there's some very overt racism on radfem Twitter that's like disturbing. And that's a good reason to not go on there. This is how I feel too. We need to educate ourselves and speak on issues that affect more women than ourselves. And where there is relative oppression, it's like, sometimes I look at makeup is like relatively trivial of an issue. I personally don't think it is, but relative to like being trafficked or enslaved or something, like it is, like it just I feel like objectively it is. I still think it's an important issue, but like it's sometimes we talk about makeup and sometimes we talk about, trafficking and enslavement or whatever. There's so many issues that we can talk about, but definitely like I've heard this, women who are in relative positions of relatively less oppression should speak on issues that affect women who are relatively more oppressed, and I agree with that. Yes, globally radical feminism is the version of feminism. There isn't nothing else, right? Liberal feminism is a first world thing. Agreed. Yeah, they have no idea. All right, so I'm going to start to wrap up. I want to do host a space here, but I don't know how to organize it. I want to host a space for other women to speak. I don't know what we talk about. Where I just kind of moderate and sit back and listen to women. Joan of Arc expressed interest in participating in something like that. I don't know, who else would like to, but I guess I would probably need some people to come forward and say, yes, sure, I'll be on and talk. And I don't know how to, I don't know how to do it. I want to do it. And I talked about it last week, but I don't know how to do it. I think it would be super fun, something casual where it's like, okay, we can just post the stream link and have people come in and talk about it. So that's pretty much all I've got today, unless anyone has anything else they want to talk about. I think, I want to do this open forum. I think it will be really fun. There were lots of women who wanted to participate last stream. Yeah, I just, it'd be cool. And you don't have to come in with your username here or anything or whatever. You can come in with whatever username you want. You make it up when you come into the stream. So it can really be super, super anonymous. And yeah, it'd just be interesting to hear women talk. But I don't know what we would talk about, That's the other thing. So anyways, I hope you ladies have a great rest of your day. I'm going to work on my video about running. I'm going to have some reading to do. I'm reading some romance novels. I'm reading a romance novel where I was saying it's really dumb. They're all really dumb. I really hate reading romance novels, but that's what I do to make money. And anyways, I'm reading a romance novel about a billionaire, as if billionaires mix with normal people. It's about a billionaire who offers to marry a woman who's a kindergarten teacher and pay off her house and stuff and I don't know what he gets out of it. But anyways, that's what I'm going to do with the rest of my day. And yeah, fun stuff. So pretty much the old billionaire kindergarten teacher trope. So fun. Who would read that? Who would read that? Who would read that, and who would write that? And then I'm reading another romance novel that's a cop doctor romance novel. That's actually very common, another common theme. Why? Cop and doctor? I don't know. I've read a few of those. It's not uncommon. I don't get it. I would love to hear from a woman who reads hetero romance novels. Because I don't think I've ever talked to a woman who actually reads this stuff like for pleasure. And I don't get it. Why? I would read anything else. I would literally read anything else. If I was going to read for pleasure, I would read nonfiction 100% of the time. I don't really care about some story that came out of somebody's brain. You know what I mean? Boring to me. Plus romance novels, like, yeah, anyways. The whole thing, it's so crazy, right? I don't get it. Fanfics, totally. But then, like, why even read it? Why even, like, reading is like takes a lot of effort, you know? Anyways, that's what I'm going to be doing with the rest of my day. I think I'll be teaching yoga in the morning for anyone who wants to join. As long as I'm feeling good, I'll probably try to schedule that later today. I've really enjoyed that the last 2 weeks. I've been having a super fun time doing that. And hopefully stream some video games. I might post a poll about what video games people want to see. I don't know. Yeah, we're all over the place. And that's it. So thank you all for joining me. Thank you again, Hazel, for the super chat. That was super, super nice. I'm a little like humbled for real. And I will see you all next week. I guess I'll do another poll. I have those fitness articles. That was my first choice for this week, but I let you guys decide. And so maybe we'll do fitness for next week. Okay. Bye.